Chester's first selectman is looking for Connecticut's top spot. He is here to tell us how he's ready to lead the state. Also, as we learn more about the Times Square bomb threat, how should we respond? We have a foreign policy and homeland security expert here with some ideas. And down to the wire, state lawmakers come up with a budget compromise. The big question, of course, is, will you be paying more? Hi, you're watching The Real Story. I'm Lori Perez. Every week from now up through the elections, we are going to be busy introducing you to the men and women who are seeking to represent you on the local, state, and national levels. And there are plenty of them. Today, we are glad to have on the show Tom Marsh, the first selectman from Chester, who announced a few weeks ago that he is running as an independent in the crowded race for governor. Thank you very much, Tom, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
If you could introduce yourself, first of all, give us kind of the elevator pitch for who you are and why you're running.
All right. Briefly, I'm Tom Marsh, first selectman of the town of Chester. Connecticut Magazine's recently announced Best Small Town in Connecticut. I'm also a small business owner. I own a janitorial service that I've done for about 20 years. So I think that makes me a little unique in that I'm both a municipal leader and a small business owner. And the profiles of both the town and the businesses that I have represent about 70% of the towns and businesses that make up Connecticut.
Interesting. So I've been to Chester and we've talked about how much I love it there. It's a beautiful little downtown, a very successful and vibrant downtown. Talk about how some of the things that you've done there you think you can apply statewide.
Well, I think the thing that has been most impressive in Chester is that we've made government a friendly place and friendly people to deal with, not something that puts blocks up to people's ideas. Most of what happens in a town like Chester comes from volunteer effort. People come to my office with ideas. Most recently, we had a Chester Sunday market where it's a little bit different. We had some construction going on in town. It was difficult finding a place to do it, so we did it right on Main Street. And we opened it up so that the booths for the market were there and the shops were just opposite. So our stationary shops did well, the market did well, and it brought hundreds and hundreds of people in every Sunday. So it's a matter of helping people get done what they want done and having government help you, not hinder you.
But people might say, okay, but that's Chester. There's like 500 people there. I mean, how is that going to translate to the entire state? Well,
it may sound trite, but it's a message of leadership. And its leadership comes from attitude and experience and perspective. And if I have the attitude that says government is here to help people, help businesses get done what they need to get done, help people get out of their life in Connecticut what they want, I'll bring that perspective to the executive office.
Okay, well, you're here at a good time because a lot has just gone on with the end of the legislative session. Tell me what you think of the budget compromise that was able to get voted on.
I think that really validated my decision to run with the independent party, because what we had is we elect our representatives to go to Hartford. And what I saw happen was we had our Democratic legislature. They have every right to push our agenda forward with the supermajority they have, but they didn't really work to come to a compromise. But then the Republicans, they picked up the ball and they went home. They said, we're not going to participate. And if you have the small number in the legislature that the Republicans have, you need to get with your executive of the same party, and you can argue behind closed doors, but come up with a plan. Because what the residents of Connecticut ended up with was not an open, honest debate to get to the solutions that we want. They, as it's been said so many times, they punted the ball, kicked the can down the road, and didn't work to come up with the solutions that those of us in the middle really need to see.
Well,
happen.
I mean, and that's a good point, is that Republicans were frustrated because they felt like they were, didn't have a seat at the table. Why do you think it is that eventually Governor Rell broke away and worked with the Democrats and left the Republicans at home?
They chose not to have a seat at the table. I mean, I agree with a lot of the positions that they took, but when you see the lay of the land and you have the constraints that you have to get the budget done, then you have to start compromising with your own side. And they were not willing to do that. Yes, it's difficult when you have, a minority numbers that they have, but they also have the power of the executive office. And I think if they could have worked with the governor behind the scenes, they could have come up with something that wasn't quite as structured as they were looking for, but made a little progress. And what they ended up with, no progress. And then you and I were hurt because of the solutions they came up with were just maxing out credit cards to a greater degree and ignoring their responsibilities to the pension plan.
Can you give us a specific example of where you think that Republicans maybe should have had a little more wiggle room?
Well, they have a big issue with privatization. There are issues where they should, but not everything needs to be privatized. It's not that we have to get rid of all of the state employees. I think if they had some more specific examples on how they could have made a couple of small movements that way, a couple of minor ideas on how we could restructure government, combine some agencies, not the massive overhaul. There just wasn't enough time. Come up with one or two easy examples and say, okay, we made a baby step. We did something to make government just a little more effective, a little more efficient.
So let's talk about, I mean, they did have one idea of selling the airport. What did you think about that idea?
Yep. Honestly, I think that's probably a pretty good idea, that selling the airport. I don't agree with the wholesale, let's sell all of our assets to get out of this particular financial crisis, but I think people who manage airports could do a better job of managing the airport we have, because I think from a strategic point of view, Bradley Airport is a huge asset looking at the populations that we have surrounding Connecticut and the ease which you can get in and out of that airport, and I think a professional company could manage it better.
What did you like about the budget? Anything?
Well, yeah, there wasn't much to like. I mean, even as a municipal leader, it was comforting to know that they didn't saddle us with an issue after we're in the process of voting on our town budget right now. So if they would have pulled the rug out from under us, it would have been very difficult because we have no place else to go other than property taxes. So while I don't agree with the process on which they got to the numbers, it was fortunate that they didn't undermine all of the municipalities and cut us at the last minute.
Okay, and I know that you wanted to talk about why you decided to run as an independent, because I had done a few debates where you were with the Republicans. Mm-hmm. Talk about how that helps you as a candidate and how it helps your ideas.
Well, I think there's a difference between running as a candidate for the independent party and running as an independent candidate. And the difference is, I was approached by the Independent Party of Connecticut, and they're an organization. The marketing line would go, they're the third largest party in the state and the fastest growing. But they only have, we're 10,000 members or so, right. So we're far back. But the issue is, what we're looking to do is create a third party, a new way of government, somebody that can represent the vast majority that sits in the middle that doesn't adhere to the party rhetoric. And what I was seeing in the process is that going to the town committees, either Republican or Democrat, you had to really toe the party line and spew the rhetoric. And if you didn't, you don't get the delegate support. So you're going to end up with two candidates that the far left and the far right find most appealing, and the solutions to the serious problems we have are not going to be found on those far right and far left positions. They're going to be found in the middle, but the process specifically excludes conversation that can push those ideas. So the independent party is looking to that middle.
And it also helps you, frankly, money-wise, right?
Money-wise? Well, yes. I mean, there's a bigger pool to draw from. I think if you know from the public financing, aside from getting the $250,000 and 2,500 donors, we need like 250,000
right.
signatures. So that's out of the picture. But I have to say there is a very energized, unaffiliated base that are looking for something different than what we have. And I fully expect to be playing in the big leagues when we get down. While the two sides are fighting with each other through the primary season, the independent party will be there with a full slate of candidates at the legislative level and at the statewide level, and you will see us and you will know who we are.
And we only have about 60 seconds, but if you can, when you have that opportunity and you have that spotlight, what's like the one thing that you're going to make sure that people know about Tom Marsh?
What they're going to know is they're going to have a voice in Hartford. What we have right now is an opportunity to get back to good governance, and good governance is founded in accountability. And I'll bring the accountability that exists at the local level where you go to town meetings and are held toe-to-toe with the taxpayer. That voice is going to be heard in Hartford. It's going to be reflected in a bully pulpit that holds the legislature accountable. If they're doing a good job, they're going to know. If they're not doing a good job, either individually or as a group, I'm going to be in their towns and I'm going to be letting their constituency know that they either are or are not doing the good work of the people.
All right. Well, we are going to be seeing much more of you, I'm sure. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Laura.
Tom Marsh, running for the Independent Party for governor. Up next, the bomb threat in New York City has many thinking about security, immigration policy, foreign policy. We're going to talk about what kind of changes are needed, if any. That's coming up.